Donna Gorton is my guest tonight on The Big Show. Donna was raised by a Micmac medicine woman. She traveled the country, seeing Hawaii and finally ending up in upstate New York by the age of 9. Donna has her Bachelor's of Science, majoring in psychology and minoring in anthropology, specializing in archaeology. Donna has had her fair share of jobs outside of the paranormal field. She was a family assessment worker assessing the risk of child abuse in the home, and it was during this time that she received her accreditation in family development. She also worked as a caseworker to prevent child abuse for over 6 years. It all came crashing down after Donna was disabled from a car accident. Nowadays, you'll find Donna trying to help people. She has 2 shows on Facebook. She also still does readings, and she likes to consider herself a life coach and trying to teach people life skills and also guiding them through their awakening path. So join me next as we jump into the rabbit hole and see how far we can go. And welcome to The Big Show, everyone. Tonight I got a very special guest with me, is Donna Gorton, and she is not only a psychic medium, she is also a witch, and most importantly, I find this very important, she is a healer of sorts because she's a medicine woman. So, with that said, we're going to talk about several different things tonight. Before we get going, welcome to the show, Donna. I'm glad you came on tonight.
Thank you, Rich. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I caught a couple of your shows. I found it very interesting. You've got a great spirit, a great soul, and I wanted to bring you on and allow my fans to see how you view things and the gifts that you offer to the world. Just a little bit, we'll talk about everything. And to get us started, mainly for my fans that don't know, she does do 2 shows. Is that correct? You host your own 2 shows.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I have the one behind me. It's Willow's Wisp. And you can see it's Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you'll only find that on the Facebook page, Hauntings, Unexplained, Paranormal and Unexplained.
Yes. Hauntings, Paranormal, and the Unexplainable.
Yes, okay. And then she also has her other show, which is Willow's Bend. So I guess they're both pretty much talk about the same thing each week, but to a different crowd. I guess is how that works.
Different topics for each show each week.
Okay, all right, gotcha. All right. I just want to make sure so people are aware. And with that said, Donna, I want to let my fans know what are the gifts that you exactly have that you grew up with and grown into.
I started out as just a really strong empath.
Okay.
All my life. That's been the first thing as far back as I can remember. Always been hypersensitive to everything. And then once I turned 40, then I suddenly got the gifts of being psychic medium and actually discovered it during a reading. And normally I used to do readings from just an empathic point of view. And the person kept pestering to, and not accepting that I didn't see spirits. I saw kind of misty shapes of them and could sense the emotional bond to tell me what the relationship was. Mm-hmm. And he just wouldn't accept that and just kept begging to see his family. So I finally said, okay, fine, it's not going to work, but I'll do it. And I asked for them, and lo and behold, they kind of stepped out of the shadows, and nobody was more floored than me that I could see them as clearly as I could see you standing in front of me. I can hear them quite clearly, and it takes really no effort for me to do it either now. So it's been close to 10 years now that I've been doing it, and so I help people in any way I can with that. I also do some astral traveling. I'm a kind of a spiritual and emotional healer for people.
Okay.
Some a little bit with the physical healing. It really depends on the connection I have to the person. It's not a strong point for me, but I have done it before. But mostly the spiritual and emotional side of things, and um, yeah, kind of a little bit of everything: psychometry, clairaudient, clairvisual, like just kind of everything. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Um, I know that we talked briefly in the past over the several weeks here and there, and I know I had mentioned to you that I was big into trying to get myself in tune with Earth, and I've always caught flack from friends, that look like, what are you doing? Taking my shoes off and laying in the grass or letting the grass and the earth touch my body and just letting the sun hit me while I lay there. And I know you believe that as well, the grounding and becoming in tune with the earth. It's very important. I think with everything that's going on now, especially with all the RF waves that interfere with our frequencies, um, it's something I try to practice more myself, is the natural getting in tune, whether it's going for a walk for an hour in the forest, or whether it's just sitting in my own backyard with my shorts pulled up and rolling in the grass. Um, People wouldn't believe the energy and the positivity that you can get off just those simple things. So, are there other things maybe that uh, I could share with my fans that you might have used or heard through your years with any type of healing in that way, or?
Well, grounding is hugely beneficial and important. It takes maybe 10 minutes. You don't have to do it every single day if you're not able to, but even once a week is better than nothing. Just spend 10 minutes, take your shoes and socks off, and sit with your feet touching the earth, and you absorb the energy of the earth. And the earth naturally heals itself
Hmm.
and rejuvenates itself. So you're getting that energy into your own body, and it does the same for you as an individual. So it heals your mind, body, and soul, and kind of re-energizes you, cleanses you from any negativity, and just makes you feel so much better when you're done.
Hmm.
um, Gemstones can also help.
Hmm.
They have very definite uh, properties to them. Each stone's unique, and they have each have their own voice.
Hmm.
I believe that everything that is alive or made up of living material has a soul,
Hmm.
including gemstones. I mean, they're rocks that come from the earth that were made by the earth. So it would serve to say they would contain the energy of that living energy of the earth.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they do have their own voice that I pick up, energy frequency wise, and I can only really translate it in terms of creating an analogy from it
Hmm.
to help people understand what I pick up for it. So I'll say, like, its energy is really high, so it's very light and dancing, and kind of reminds me of like fairies, just playing and having fun. Or it's really deep and low, and it's solid, and it's stately. It's like an old man sitting under a tree thinking. So I kind of come up with ways like that to help people understand what I pick up from a stone. But so they can definitely help.
Okay.
They also can help you enhance any gifts you might have and strengthen them. Um, yeah, just spending time, and you're like, for me, anything by water or earth, like woods, are my healing places, my happy places.
Hmm.
And whether it's a creek, a river, a stream, the ocean especially is just so rejuvenating and powerful to me. It just completely, I can walk away completely refreshed and just feeling like, wow, that's so much better now. And then get on my way. And because you do pick up all that energy of all the life surrounding you as well.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hmm.
I think those are the main ways. Meditation helps, and visualization is huge as well,
Hmm.
in accomplishing anything. Stating your intention to the universe
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
throwing it out there to positive thought, and reducing all negative stuff in your life in general if possible.
Hmm.
If you can't get people out of your life that are negative, put them out to arm's length and keep them there.
Yeah.
And don't worry about what everybody else thinks. Just worry about your own path, because we all have our own path in this life, and it's not for anybody else to judge or criticize, because it's going to be different for each one. Each person's soul is in a different place on that path.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right or wrong way to do it. As long as you're not harming others, you're good. Or should be.
Man, I agree 100%. And that's one of my big things because, and I just barely, I brushed the topic with you when we've talked in the past, the little bit of time that we had together talking. But that's one of my big things. I don't care of a person's spirituality, their beliefs. I want to understand their belief
Excuse me.
or what they believe. And even when I
Sure.
told you earlier, when people try to pin us to like, well, what are you? I like to tell people I'm spiritually in tune and I believe in a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to associate that sometimes as saying, okay, Christian. Well, some people will hear that and go running for the hills thinking, oh, I'm narrow-minded, when I'm one of the most open-minded people. And I don't know if you have realized that from the time that we've known each other, but I want to learn and absorb. I want to know the hidden secrets that were left out of that Bible that I read, because that was put together by man, whether it was touched spiritually or not. There are other things out there that were left out, and we've gone over those from the Sanscripts to the thought tablets, the Book of Enoch, and on and on. There's so much literature to study in history that that's what I'm a seeker of truths, knowledge, and love. I love everyone. I want to know about everything, and I like to keep my eyes wide open. And that's what drew me to you when I listened to you, because I was like, you know what? That's somebody I would love to sit down with, and let's just shoot it. Let's talk about it, and I want to understand and feel everything that you have. And with that said, fans, with Donna, I think that, I don't know if it's with everyone, but when she sits down with a person, she's able to see, I guess, their past life. If they believe in reincarnation or not, you can see. I mean, I know it's not everyone, or what does it take for you to be able to use that ability? Or you're not able to use it on everyone, I'm sure, but the people you are, is there like a requirement or something that you're kind of figuring out, like, hey, I got basket A I cannot figure out, and then there's basket B I'm able to read.
It's very clear cut for me, and I think it starts with the empath side of me, that I automatically know whether I can, I love you or I hate you type of thing. Why not? I hate, but just like
Right.
you, or uncomfortable around you. And I personally believe that if you're uncomfortable around someone automatically, the reason typically is you had a bad past life interaction with that person on whatever level it was, or they were responsible for your death in some cases. That, I just did a show on this the other night of soul families, that there are souls that you re-encounter lifetime to lifetime, that you reconnect with, whether they're finding you, you're finding them, but they follow you lifetime to lifetime, and they're the ones who accept you unconditionally and have your back 100%. And you talk to them for a couple minutes and you instantly feel like they're your best friend and you've known them forever. And there's that comfort level and ease. And the opposite's true too, that if you instantly, for no good reason, feel threatened by somebody, or like, whoa, okay, I don't like being around you, that's the reason, is there's a past life interaction that happened between your soul and theirs, and your spirit's remembering that when you're encountering them again. You're sensing, your spirit senses that, or says, hey, I know you. So it's either a, whoa, I know you, I'm out, or hey, I know you, where have you been?
Right.
So that's the determinant for me. If I feel like that, hey, I know you, where have you been, feeling, and feel like, that instant connection to somebody, I know automatically that I've had a past life interaction with them at least once. And I just ask to see and close my eyes, and it kind of comes in like the best way I can explain it is like a watercolor wash, where you like wet the paper down and you put the watercolor on the brush and touch it to the paper, and it kind of comes in kind of spreading, and it forms together until the picture starts forming. It can take a minute because you're going way back, of course. And I believe that my guides are tapping into the Akashic records and showing me what that is, and then I start to see it's a kind of almost like I'm watching the scene at first
Mm-hmm.
from behind
Mm-hmm.
and see, who the people were. Sometimes you're opposite gender in another lifetime than what you are in this lifetime. And, that's not the important part, but it's whatever the connection is. So I figure that out based on the emotions coming in, the interaction between the two people
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm seeing. And I figure out time frames of when it happened based on the style of dress and the location, what's around the environment, and what, if anybody else is present, then what they look like and what they're wearing. Then I can kind of determine about when it happened. And then I usually, once I figure out the relationship and what the connection was, then I usually ask to see, okay, so what broke that connection
Mm-hmm.
in that life? And I can see how, whether it was you who died first or I died first, I see that and how they died to end that connection. And sometimes I can get the emotions from that ending. So there's times I'll break down crying and I have to really work hard to, that was then, this is now, come back on, and that was then, this is now, and it's a before time, and separate it. But at the same time, whatever that bond was emotionally, I keep that in the here and now. So if it's a woman who I was best friends with in a past life, for example, I feel like she's my best friend in this life. If it was a sister, then you get called sister. Sometimes it's mother or daughter, or I saw one the other day for myself and another woman who, in that lifetime, we were both boys, pre-teenage boys.
Oh, wow.
And we were best friends and from an orphanage. And so we bonded together in that way to where we became brothers by our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up dying, and that's what severed the connection. But and that person was like, oh my God, I have this innate fear of water.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of explains it to me. If this is how I died, or that you died, then that explains my fear of it. Is I'm just terrified. I don't know why, and I can't learn to swim or whatever it is. And I've had that a lot too. That a common, whatever you're really, really, truly afraid of in this lifetime, if you have a big phobia of it, it's usually explained by something that happened in a past life, and a lot of times it's your death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And your soul kind of remembers that. So if it's for a stranger that I don't know and I don't have a connection to, and I ask to see that, the first time it ever happened, it was quite startling because it hadn't happened before. I had a very close bond with a person. However, I was asking to see other past lives they had without me. And I suddenly heard and I saw this, it was almost like an elderly woman, kind of veiled to where I couldn't see her clearly, but the voice was very there, authoritative. And she just said, that is not for you to see. Whoa, okay, I'm sorry, I'm out. I didn't mean any harm, and like I didn't mean to tap into something I'm not meant to see.
Sure.
And I backed out immediately. So now I just avoid asking because I have come to recognize that that's something for someone to discover on their own journey,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and not for me just to open that, or I'm not meant to crack that open for somebody. There are psychic mediums who can and do, but I just am not one of them.
Right.
I'm not allowed, and I'm not supposed to see for strangers that I don't have a connection to.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
that's kind of how that works.
Very interesting.
And I've had many, many lifetimes.
Now, you had mentioned the Akashic Records. I'm going to be doing a show here. It won't probably be out for well over a month and a half. But we are doing a show on the Akashic Records. Do you feel like that you are maybe a seer or a holder to the info? Or are you somehow tied to them yourself?
I think when I'm doing a reading for someone, my gifts mainly are connecting people who have lost someone, and I'm able to contact that spirit on the other side. And my guides have created kind of a halfway meeting point for me to have that kind of me go there, they come in, and it has one door, one way in and out, and they guard the outside so nothing negative can enter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the spirit comes in to talk to me, and then I make that connection. We validate that I have the right person, because sometimes it's happened where they've been busy and sent somebody else in on their behalf,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't always disclose that. So through describing them, and they usually will ask like a discerning question that only that person might know, in order to identify that we have they're confident I have the right person. and then we go from there. But that's kind of my forte, and that's very easy for me to do with people. I think that when I get any psychic information about someone and their path, whilst that's not my strongest gift, stuff does come through during a reading, and I believe that that's given to me by my guides from the Akashic records.
Okay.
So I think I'm kind of tapping into that for the person.
Mhm.
Now, anytime I've sought information like, is my boyfriend cheating on me, or should I go out with so and so? Spirits consider that really petty
Mhm.
information, and they don't worry about it, and they laugh at me when I ask,
Mhm.
kind of like, why are you bothering us with this
Mhm. Mhm.
attitude? But if it's something a little bit more profound, or about their pathway, or how they're handling something in this life, then yes, I will get stuff on that, but the important stuff,
Right.
and pass that along to them.
Right.
So yeah, I think that the Akashic records are something that is very real. I just actually did a show on it myself
Oh, okay.
in Willow's Wisp,
Mhm.
maybe a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
So, and teaching people what it is and how it works, and
Mhm.
everybody looks at it a little bit differently, but most psychic mediums will have accepted that that's probably where our information comes from.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if you're a believer and in research and study, I mean, and you deal or delve in the world that we delve into, I think it's a key component to everything. I mean, because it's basically all our lifetimes from the beginning
Yes,
of time, and it's a record. And, so what better place for you guys to receive your information?
but it's not just a record of our
Right.
lifetimes, it's also a record of every thought,
Right.
every
Right.
action,
And not
every
just and
emotion,
not just human.
anything
It's
that you've done in a given lifetime, good or bad, is in there.
right.
And Edgar Casey, which many are familiar with him, he had received information that afterward, when he kind of reread what he had said while in a trance, he said, that makes sense to me, and I agree with that. And I have a big long quote from him regarding the Akashic records, and it was very much like he was channeling a spirit through while he was talking about it in the trance.
Mhm.
And it was basically explaining that even though people may not accept it or believe in it or acknowledge it, it does still exist. And hopefully people will look at it in terms of being more mindful of their actions, their emotions, and so forth,
Mhm.
that it does get recorded and looked at later.
Mhm.
It's there for
Mhm.
every lifetime we've ever lived.
Mhm.
So to kind of utilize that knowledge in your own life to stay on the straight and narrow, so to speak,
Right. Right.
and live the best life you can.
Mhm.
And I've personally explored. I was given the opportunity when I reached a certain age to explore whatever religion I wanted to, and the freedom to do so, and find what was the right path for me. And I did just that. I mean, I was raised as a First Baptist, and then we got switched to Methodist. My mother didn't like the direction the Baptists were going in,
Mhm.
and pulled us and put us in the Methodist. And then when I was probably about 9, she said, I don't care, if you want to go to church, you can. If you don't want to, don't have to. Or explore. So I did. I went to a Catholic church several times until I had an understanding of what their basic process
Mhm.
was and their beliefs. Even a Kingdom Hall for the Jehovah's
Mhm.
Witnesses. And I have family who are Jehovah's Witnesses, so I drilled them with questions to
Mhm.
have a good understanding of it. Used to babysit for a Jewish couple and used to hit them up and have them explain it. And they used to go to the synagogue every so often on certain dates to, worship and so forth. So gaining all that knowledge, and then as an adult, I went to college, and um, I have a bachelor's of science degree in psychology. However, my minor is anthropology, which is a study of people
Mhm.
and societies and cultures and stuff. That stuff has always fascinated me.
Mhm.
And so I furthered that with that of learning more about different people's belief systems and cultures, and accept it all. And there's a common theme that runs through all of them. Be the best person you can be. Don't go hurting anybody unnecessarily. Be respectful, treat the earth well, and things will work out good in the end if you do.
Mhm.
You be a bad person, there's consequences, and I think there are. So
Mhm.
that's a common theme I came away from
Mhm.
with every single religion out there. And like you said, yeah, it's hard to put a label on just where you might stand.
Mhm.
I'm closest to being a Wiccan, um,
Mhm.
and which is very earth-based,
Mhm.
and even as a witch, well, even as a medicine woman, all three of them are very nature earth-based things.
Absolutely.
And I grew up being teased and called a tree hugger, and you're too sensitive, you're too touchy, and watching people around me who were hunters and did it for fun and just not understanding how someone could do that. And I
Mhm.
understand eating, I love a good steak like the next person, but at the same time, I couldn't go out and kill the cow myself brutally just for fun.
Right.
If it's done humanely, then it's possible. Then okay, maybe, but not just for sport.
Mhm.
And that always hurt me
Mhm.
when I was, I see a deer carcass on someone's car, for example, or
Mhm.
people used to come on my land, and my land was a wildlife refuge. It was a federally recognized wildlife refuge. They were free to come and go as they wanted, and we had everything on there, North American wild animals. And people would be like, "Oh man, I only have my gun now." I said, "Oh man, then you wouldn't be sitting in my house now." "No man, you wouldn't be on my property now because that's not allowed."
Right.
"Oh, but no buts. They're safe here, and they know that, and
Mhm.
that's why they're here in flocks or in herds, because they're comfortable and they know it's a safe place.
Mhm.
They're not going to get bothered. If anything, my dog was the biggest threat to them by, this is my land, and I'd lecture them every time. Dude, they were here long before you were. This is not just your mountainside; it's theirs.
Awesome.
Theirs first. So,
Awesome. That's great. That's great. Now, have you ever come across somebody that you've had such a strong connection with in a previous life where I'm going to put this out there, I don't know, a husband or something where you guys
oh
are,
yes,
husband and wife, and you live a different life,
yes.
and okay, do you want to share any of that, or is it personal?
Sure.
Okay, I don't know.
I've actually encountered two men that I have met who, through different ways, but through spending a few minutes with them, I felt that deeper connection with them. And when I asked to see, I got shown just that, husband and wife lifetimes and families together. And I usually, I used to just stop at like seeing 2 or 3 lifetimes just to validate that, okay, yes, I'm right, there's a connection there and I'm good. And sometimes the other person would say, okay, is there anything else? So I keep asking to be shown until there are no more to see. The highest count I've had with the same person was 9 lifetimes,
Oh,
whether
wow.
he was my husband. And oh yeah, I very much feel that connection, because once I see it and I experience the remembering of it, then those emotions come forward for me, and I, would be ready to run away with the person in this lifetime if they asked. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I mean, I've had well, 2 of them have felt that, but not fully as much as I have, because I've seen it as well, and not just I've tried to take them back to as far as I can
Mhm.
to open that door for them to experience some of the emotions at least,
Mhm.
so they can understand the bond. Some it scares off, or they acknowledge it, but they're too afraid to take that step in this lifetime to make it be again in
Mhm.
this lifetime, and they chicken out at the last minute and it's never gone anywhere. But
Mhm.
um and it's been difficult at times to stow the emotions that
Sure.
I associate to that person, but I don't have a choice. I can't control. It's a universal law. You cannot control what anyone else says, thinks, or does.
Mhm.
And so much strife in this life comes from trying to do just that. And
Exactly.
I try to remind myself of that when I get into that position of like, but how can you just walk away from, you feel this too, I know you do, and you acknowledge you do, but don't let fear stop you of that's not going to work. You have the
Mhm.
chance to be the happiest you've ever been in
Mhm.
this lifetime. So what's the holdup here? And they have their own reasons. It's not meant to be in this lifetime. They have their own path, and I have to understand it and accept it and
Mhm. Mhm.
say it is what it is. And it's just like any other breakup, if you will. It's like an emotional bond relationship
Sure.
thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know I want to have more usually when I have that in this lifetime, because
Mhm.
I know how happy I could be and they could be,
Mhm.
and that's all I want for that person, is to be happy,
Mhm.
because I still feel like they're my husband now, even though they're not. And I understand, I mean, one of them was married,
Right.
and I said, I will not ever tell you to divorce your wife. That's not my place.
Mhm. Mhm.
However, if that's your choice
Mhm.
to proceed with that, to be with me, then okay, I'm not going to dissuade you, but you will not ever hear me say, leave your wife.
Right.
Not my place.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not going to be
that
responsible for breaking up a
that
marriage.
would be such a
And I
hard
don't do
spot.
married men.
Right.
What's that?
That'd be such a hard spot to be in, knowing that you've had these previous lives together, and then the energy comes through from that, and it fills
Yes.
you, and then you're able to share it with them. I think that it would just be, if you were actually able to share with them that emotion from past lives, it would almost be so overwhelming that you would not. I would think you couldn't hold back. You know.
I can't completely. And, it's usually gotten to the point where I'm kind of like, okay, a decision needs to be made here
Mhm.
on, I usually I'm able to open the door for them enough to at least have a couple brief flashes of like different lifetimes we've had, or at least the emotions attached to those lives, so they know it's there and they won't deny it's there, and they feel that for me, even though they may not be able to explain it. They know it's there,
Mhm.
and yet fear often stops the situation from proceeding. And when I push for an answer to say, hey, okay, every day not together is another day lost.
Mhm.
So what do you want to do here? And I don't, this isn't enough for me,
Right.
feeling what I feel and seeing what I've seen, to just have this be okay and this is enough for the rest of my life. That's not enough.
Mhm.
If it's your choice not to be with me, I can't affect that choice,
Mhm.
and I have to accept it. And yeah, that always stays there. I will always love that person and feel love towards them, but I have to accept it's not meant to be on this in this lifetime.
Right.
So it's difficult. Yes, absolutely.
Now, with what we're talking about tonight, and I'm sure there's some fans out there that are wondering this. It's crossed my mind. Um, we've got to take into play the multiverse, because
Yes.
we're not we're parallel. There's multiple universes,
Oh,
basically.
yeah.
And not only do they run simultaneously, they're starting to talk about now that they can run, forwards, backwards, past lives,
Yep.
lives we have not lived yet. Um, do we always come back as humans, or even in the same universe, or can we come back in a separate universe as, say, a three-headed dragon? That universe, that's what it projects,
Sure.
and
I believe, based on all the research I've done, I love research. I love, like you were saying, I'm a seeker of knowledge
Mhm.
and love to research and learn. And everyone's always like, oh, the trouble you go through for the shows and that we appreciate it. You could do the same thing. You have a world of knowledge at your fingertips here.
Mhm.
Use it for more than hanging out on Facebook. Go, it's not hard.
Right.
And if I said, the safe rule of thumb is, if I see the same research and the same ideas presented on more than 3 sites, then I count it as probably valid,
Okay.
and I'll go with it.
Mhm.
And I kept seeing the idea of soul contracts, and it was the idea, basically, for those who aren't familiar with it, is that you kind of meet with your spirit guides. You have the same spirit guides forever and ever. They follow you throughout whatever lifetime you're in. They know you better than anybody, and they're there to help you, guide you, and protect you,
Mhm.
despite whatever form you're in. Or time is not the same on the other side, and you are given the choice to whether to come back or not. You can decide not to, or not to right then and there. I think most people do choose to at some point. However, you can stay on the other side for a while if you want to, and that's okay. Spirits have expressed
Sorry.
all kinds of different situations they're in on the other side to me. So I have a basic understanding, even though they can't tell us everything, there are rules on the other side.
Mhm.
They can't tell us everything now, but what they have told me is enough to kind of put together a rough idea of what it's like over there.
Mhm.
And so I think that you meet with your guides and kind of, they say, okay, so to continue on your soul's journey and your path to enlightenment and to keep moving forward, here's the next life that you need. And you are shown that lifetime, and it's not all good. It's not, everyone plays, when they go have a traumatic childhood, for example, with whatever it contains. Oh, poor me, why me? And why am I going through this? And I prayed to God to make it better, and nothing happened. And well, I think your soul knows that that's what you're going to go through, but it needs that experience because there's always, I can't stress that enough, always a lesson to be learned. No matter what tragic thing that happens to you, good or bad, you have to step back. Instead of saying, why me, say, what is the lesson here that I should be learning from this experience? And aha, okay, I get it now. And you're one step further ahead on your path because you get it. And then once you move to that thought process, it makes more sense. So I think you're shown that lifetime, and you have to agree to it before you go into it. And I think through the process of being born, I mean, anyone who's looked into the eyes of a newborn baby, they got the answers to the universe in those eyes. It has always appeared that way to me. Like they just have such deep, old eyes. Like they just hold all the answers to everything right there. But through the process, but they don't have the capability of, in the language, the muscles and stuff aren't developed enough to talk yet. And by the time they are, and all the stimuli and input in the lifetime that's coming at them to learn and grow, they gradually lose the memory of what they saw on the other side. And some kids hang on to some of it, and those are the children who, start coming out with all this past life information that is definitely you can track and say there was somebody by this name who lived here, and they recognize people and so forth in a situation. But most kids overall lose it over time. And I think that based on the fact that I have seen other dimensions myself, I know they exist. And so, and I've also had the validation of, I had a reading done once by someone who used galactic origin cards. And I believe when you're using any type of tarot cards, yes, it's your energy going into the cards, but their guides are also helping you with the, what's selected for the person.
Right.
So it's those cards, the meanings of them are very complicated. I didn't understand all of it, but what was explained to me is that, like, I'm a galactic mother, it's called, to where I have ties and origins to every race of every being that has ever existed throughout time and space, and and through multiple dimensions and the fifth dimension and so forth. And whilst I don't have any memories except for one of being a different being than who I, not human, humanoid-ish, but different. There's got to be something to it. He said it's very rare that one will show themselves in public to anybody and that you come across one, but there it is. And I do have a belief that yes, you can be born into another dimension, have different lifetimes, that some do run parallel. Instead of looking at time like a timeline, I think it's more stacked, and you can jump, on the other side, you can jump from one time frame to another, one dimension to another. And again, I've seen other dimensions firsthand. Whether anybody believes me or not, I really don't care because I trust my guides.
Right.
And they've taken me because I was supposed to see something or be a recorder of that information, somebody to witness what happened in that place. And I vividly, one of them was horrifically gory and bloody and very, I woke up just in tears over what I saw, and it was so intense, and it wasn't a dream. I don't dream like that, ever, ever. There's a definite different feeling between when I'm being taken to travel to another place and time than from my normal dream stuff. And this was so different, just as I have visitation dreams from, people who have crossed over. Same thing, feels completely different than a regular dream. And I know how I dream. I've studied sleep and dreams and stuff and psychology and know that all that stuff, but it's totally different. So yes, I definitely believe you can be born into anything. And I think every myth has an origin story of where it started as something that has made it transcend time and space to still be talked about today. And even though we label it as myth and say, oh, there's no evidence, well, maybe those beings went back to their own dimension or were driven back to their own dimension to retreat because humans were after them and hunted them down. So for their own safety and survival, they had to go home.
Right.
And historically speaking, we do that to beings. And there's no other species on this planet as destructive as human beings are overall. Not all of us, of course, but as a species. And it's almost like parasitic in nature. You go in and you take over and you use up and then you leave. And that's kind of, I think, why evidence of all those myths is so hard to find, is that they can either jump, I still think they can jump back and forth between here and their own home worlds, but it's they stay over there predominantly. That's home base for them now. So I think that's why there's not evidence everywhere
Right.
of all the
Interesting.
cryptids and other alien races and
Well, you
so
know
forth. And
what I find interesting about what you're talking about, and what's going to segue us in. It's about that time to do the Gauntlet of Five. But if you look at ancient drawings, paintings, carvings, and even art, and
yep,
we go back thousands of years, these people wouldn't depict something on a wall that they didn't see with their own two eyes, because
right,
they were trying to communicate to us this was the situation, this what was around us, and this is what we
yep,
saw. The Hopi Indians here in the U.S. were big for that. They believed in that, the God from the sky would come down, and he almost,
Skyfather,
yeah,
yep.
and he almost looked like a tall alien gray, the way they have him depicted on their wall with the big eyes and the things of that sort. Before we hit the Gauntlet of Five, I want to ask you one question. That we're talking about the multiverses and the dimensions, and I subscribe to all that. I'm right there with you. And I've seen children that are 12 and 13 on YouTube, and they're breaking down theories and showing how the universes work, and they're talking about it. And there was also a gentleman, I read an article, and he did a video as well about it as well, that he started seeing himself come to himself, but from another time or another dimension.
I've heard of that.
And what they were doing was telling him, hey man, you're an artist over here, and you have that, whatever power I have over here, you're able to use it in your universe. Start tapping
Yes.
into art. So this man woke up the next morning, he started doing art. And this is beautiful art. And now he's well known for his art, and it's making him all kinds of money. Then another one came to him and said, you can play the piano. And not only play it, you're a genius. He got up the next morning and he was literally playing Mozart, and he had,
Wow.
you know what I mean? And he had, so these kind of things come to him. So I was going to ask you, how do you feel about that? Because I feel dreams they tell you something, and especially
Yes.
when you have multiple dreams of the same thing over and over throughout your lifetime. Where there was one where I'm always dreaming that I have the ability to levitate and fly, but I can only go so high, and I'm able to travel around. And it's not just me, everyone around me where I'm at has this ability. So was that another timeline, another universe? And it comes to me, and people say, oh no, that's just you dreaming because you want to fly. But I've also had another one where, and I know this is going to sound weird to people, but um, I was good in basketball in this life in high school, and all state I played. I was a shooting guard, but I've always dreamed that in another life I actually made it to the top in that life, and it comes to me and tells me,
Nice.
it says, man, this is your life over here. Just
Sure.
because you didn't do it here, you're doing it here. So I would never tell people about it because I was always worried, oh man, listen to Rich, you crazy bastard. But you get to a point where you're like, there's got to be something to it. So I don't know.
I am at the point now in my life where there are very few people's opinion who matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I really don't give a shit what anybody thinks of me.
Right.
With most people, if you don't like me, I may be curious why, but I'm not hurt by it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm very much a heart person. Like I said, being an empath is my strongest skill set and gift.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel everything intensely, sure. And I grew up with, anytime anyone would make fun of me or whatever, just being devastated of how can someone be so cruel or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that through both my official like scientific studies in psychology, I did take a course on the psychology of sleep and dreams, and we studied dreams and how like them broken down and what sleep cycles you go through and all the scientific side of it. But then also had to keep a dream journal to teach you to remember your dreams, and that's an excellent way to remember more of your dreams and see patterns from them and so forth. And through that, I mean, I that's why I'm very clear on the different types of dreams I have. You know, my normal dreams are very kind of sci-fi in nature and fantastical, and you know, like you just said, the flying dream. I have that a lot where I'm being chased, and I can only fly so high, just high enough to keep out of the grass, but they're right behind me, right under my tail.
Yes.
And sure, the scientific side of things could say, well, that's the stress you feel in life of having to perform and always be perfect and blah 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 blah. But the other side is, yes, could it have been another lifetime in another place? Maybe. You know, if I'm, they always say too that if you're once a witch, you're always a witch. It's something that's in your genetic line, whatever. Or, but it's on, like it's on a, goes deeper than DNA and cellular. It's a soul thing that you have always been. So is it possible that I was in another place? Absolutely. Could I have been being persecuted in that lifetime for that? Sure. Why not? If unless someone can prove to me something doesn't exist empirically and 100% say this is not real and this is why, and it's 100% proven out, then I say why not? Why can't it exist? And again, I've experienced, you know, my normal dreams, like I said, very sci-fi fantasy, but every other dream, like if it's a visitation dream, every microscopic detail of it is so real and there in the moment. I can see the person, I can feel them, I can smell them, I hear them, they're there, I'm there with them. If it's a dream where I'm being taken elsewhere, it's just as vivid, but it's elsewhere, and then I definitely have a sensation of having to pull myself back into me and before I can wake up from it. And I get shown specific things, and then when I can talk to my guides afterwards, say, what the hell was that? Then they explain to me, it's, you know, this is why we're showing you this. And I've been told, you know, I've seen things about regarding aliens and alien contact in our lifetimes that's going to be happening and what to expect with that and to be ready. And that I have a role to play in that. And okay, it sounds ludicrous to some people, but again, I have to trust my guides. And so, okay. And then I was reading today, actually, every time I've been taken somewhere in an astral travel capacity, I've encountered where remember the number 5. Remember the number 5. Number 5 is you got to remember, that's important. And that's been a message across all of them. And today in my research for alien hybrids, I came across that there are 5 main accepted alien races that are thought to exist. And I found that interesting connection. Like, I don't know that much about all the different I mean, I know the gist, but I don't know in-depth details of the Pleiadians and the Arcadians and all this stuff. I mean, I know what they are, but not intimate detail about their lives or what abilities they're supposed to have, whatever. But I found it interesting that remember the number 5 and that there are 5 main races. I was like, oh, okay, that's why that's important, and I needed to know that. So to me, that was validation of what they have been saying to me all along, is that I needed to know that that's where 5 is important. There's 5 different alien races. There's more than that out there, but not that are concerned with us. And then you can go into the Anunnaki and all that stuff. And like you were saying, the ancient texts and drawings and so forth. And yeah, there was something back then that people felt important enough to document. And there was, even science concludes that there was a leap in our development that's unexplainable, where we were going along nice and steady and slow in our development, and all of a sudden, boom, we're way ahead. And you know, they can't explain how we got there, but suddenly we're making fire. We could utilize stones and make tools and artwork, and you know, burying our dead and being concerned with burial rites and see, you know, communication and all this stuff. And they're like, I don't know. I've seen innumerable documentaries on that with scientific people, abundance of them, all saying I can't explain that. So something happened to have that happen. So was it aliens involved in, you know, showing up here? And giving us that technology wasn't the Watchers, the angels, and and breeding with us having the Nephilim be things, and
Mhm.
the Bible relates them as man-eating giants or whatever. But I
Mhm.
think there were more than that.
Mhm.
Every civilization has their own creation story and flood story and so forth.
Mhm.
That's universal across the line there for everybody.
Mhm.
They all have those things. It's just different versions of how they happen.
Mhm.
So things like that I think are indisputable.
Mhm.
And I think that beings like the Anunnaki has been documented across all cultures as
Mhm.
being something came here and gave us that knowledge and technology
Mhm.
and advancement. I think it's still going on.
Mhm. Well, it has to be going on still because
Yeah.
you look, all right, if we just take, for example, and I did years of research on the Anunnaki, fallen angels, Nephilim, the Rephaim.
Hmm.
Um, and I look at it back then as the turning point for cultures as far as why we have so many different stories and different languages is the Tower of Babel. And when
Hmm.
that came down and they basically, that's what I tell my friends. I said, you ever heard that old expression? They don't listen to that bum on the street. He's just babbling along. He's just
Hmm.
babbling because you didn't understand yourself. That's where it comes from, the Tower of Babel and in Babylon. And when there were thousands of people that were able to communicate, and then thousands that weren't, and the ones that could understand each other got together and moved this,
Hmm.
and and then everyone went their own ways. So if they were subscribing to a world, let's say, even one world God at the time, or one world omnipotent being. That's why so many languages, they'll say, or even religions, it translate to God or God, one God.
Right.
We have the pantheons as well, but the pantheon of gods, I feel that those were the watchers of the fallen angels that fell on Mount Hermon, and that's where we get Zeus and Thor and this and that, because they did battle. They did give man the technology. They taught us the art of war. They taught us astrology and how to use the stars. That's how I feel
Hmm.
about it. But um, with aliens, it's just I've always, since I was younger, I've always I told a story that I had. I'm not going to tell it tonight. People know it's in one of my shows. Um, I used to have 4 Greys that would visit me up until I was 37 years old. And it started when I was about
Wow.
7 on a 500-acre farm in Monroe, Virginia. And I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C., spent some time in Chicago. So I'm originally an East Coast boy. I'm just in the heart of the Bible Belt in good old Oklahoma, but I love it here. It's been
I
nice.
have several friends in Oklahoma. Yeah.
I love it here. Um, but what I'm getting at is, folks, we can't discount anything. And that's why, Donna, she's got a beautiful mind. And I always say that when I get guests that come on that are interesting, intriguing, and they think outside the box, she's not a part of the herd. She's leading a herd. You see what I'm saying? Because I always say sheeple. Everyone's sheeple nowadays. And they feel safest when they're herded together, moving forward with their heads down, you
Yep.
know? And it's the ones like us who say, look up, man, there's too much out here. I got to find out about this, and we break.
I have always been a loner. I
Mm,
have always marched to my own drum
mm,
and never fit in anywhere and done my own thing out of necessity
mhm,
because I never fit in anywhere. I mean, that's an empath trait as well. And, so that's why I said that's my strongest trait because
mhm,
from very early on, and they say, virtually every empath was an indigo child.
mhm.
And I think there's one trait of being an indigo child I don't have, and all the rest absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So if you're an indigo child, you're a starseed,
Okay.
and get into all of that as well.
Mhm,
So then the idea that I could be a galactic mother, even though I don't have all those memories,
mhm,
seems more possible to me. And again, I say, instead of saying, oh no, that can't exist, I say, why not?
okay.
Because you can't prove to me it's not 100%. It's easy to scoff and say, oh, there's no scientific evidence and stuff. Science hasn't pierced the veil
Mhm,
of so many different things, or they're just starting to.
mhm,
And so yeah,
And I
there's
could,
some scientists who are, not all scientists are evil and bad or,
right.
hardcore, absolute by the book, but most, I understand the premise of science. That you have to have reproducible results and so forth in order to be valid. And unless they have that or some evidence that says, yes, this is real, then they discount it. And, whether you're talking about Bigfoot or the existence of mermaids or aliens, whatever it is, there's been stories of them, and there's some evidence that can't be explained. It doesn't quite fit our DNA or our whatever, yet they write it off as, oh, it's a test result error or whatever. Well, what if it's not?
Right. Right.
What if it is something, and why can't this exist?
Right.
And they're just starting to learn about there being other dimensions and the multiverse theory and so forth. And so if that's possible, then why can't there be beings from other dimensions that are not us?
Right.
And that they couldn't have impacted us. Who knows?
Absolutely.
They could have started out here and then spread out from here themselves and gone on to the other universes and settled there. Who knows? We could be a way station for them. And I think that people talk about full disclosure and all that stuff. They've been disclosing themselves for ages. And there's a gentleman who I respect his opinions considerably, and I agree with him on a lot. His name's John D'Souza, who is a former FBI agent in kind of like a modern day X-Files. He's retired from there now with honors, so he's not a crackpot. And he has talked a lot about both his own alien encounter experiences, but also government involvement in things. And he feels that, and I agree, and it's been done before by the government, they feel like we can't handle anything. And, you talked about the sheeple thing. I use the analogy on my show of concentric circles like a target. And your inside circle is you. And then just outside of that is that which is closest to you, your family, your, your dearest friends, like your soul family. And then outside of that is like your work crew or your acquaintances. And then it just gets bigger from there. Most people like that bubble that insulates them from everything else, and they're not willing to break that bubble and step outside of it because they're afraid. And I say there's no reason for fear to expand your mind. It doesn't have to hurt to have your awakening happen. Sure, it shakes your foundation up, but that's okay. Why not? You live through it.
Absolutely.
It's not a dramatic event.
Right. Well, man, I was going to take you to the Gauntlet of Five, but I think we've answered everything from the Gauntlet of Five.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, it's not sorry. It's wonderful. It just means that we've hit on so much good stuff. I mean, usually I would ask them, but I mean, I can still ask you. We'll do the Gauntlet of Five.
You can still ask me.
I'll still ask you because well, we know some of them now just from the way you're talking. But the first question always I ask my guests when they're on the Gauntlet of Five is Bigfoot. Does he exist?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Hybrid creatures such as, and we touched on this, mermaids, giants, centaurs, did they exist in the past, or could they possibly still be with us hidden?
I think that they are still very much alive and well, but I think all of them are interdimensional beings, and that they have their own home base, if you will. But yeah, they come and go from here. Where that's why, like with Bigfoot, you see so many sightings of people saying, I was tracking the tracks and following the sounds, and all of a sudden it just disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they pop back home to get away from your ass who was chasing them. Like they're going to be concerned with their own safety. So sure, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3, aliens. Do they exist?
Yes.
Okay. Did we land on the moon?
I think we did. However, I think there's a whole lot more to the moon story than what we're led to believe.
Okay. Fair enough.
I've seen a lot of images from the dark side of the moon that give pause to think about, with structures and everything else that are over there that no one's explaining and talking about, but they're there nonetheless.
And I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
It even goes back to that one, they found a spaceship supposedly on the moon that had Mona Lisa on it, that astronaut that looks like she could have existed during the Mayan or Aztec times. I don't know.
There's Renaissance paintings that have alien or spacecraft in the background. Like it'll have a picture of a scene of a window behind somebody in the painting, and behind that, in the background of the sky, there's a floating object
Sure.
that, there's nothing like that in
Yeah, like a
that
Vermonter or
time
something.
frame
Yeah.
that people could explain away. So is that the artist's way of saying, hey, I've seen that thing, and so I'm going to put it in there to document it? And where else would they have come up with that? But that's in a multitude of paintings,
Right.
going way back as to the beginning of paintings becoming a thing. So yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
sweet. And our last one, we're going to drop it like it's hot. Do you believe that the Earth is flat, globe, or round, or as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, pear-shaped?
I think it's round.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Great. You survived the gauntlet of 5. That's
I am
interesting.
honored.
Yes. I love to ask everyone because everyone has a different story and a different
Sure.
answer. And it's always fun to hear what people have to say about that. But I'm going to tell you what, time has flown by tonight. I think me and you could probably talk for 3 hours. And we wouldn't realize it because I know we're already pushing well over an hour or close to it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to rush you off, but I do like to keep the shows at about an hour just so people will watch it. And like I said, beautiful mind, beautiful soul, beautiful person. Donna, I am so glad that you joined me tonight. And we'll be getting this edited and uploaded. And guys, you've got to check her out. Go to the Hauntings Paranormal and Unexplained Facebook, and I'll add a link for that for you as well on my group and on my Facebook. And check her out on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also Willow's Bend. What time and what day is that?
Willow's Bend, I have a group that's mine called Willow's Bend. And I go live in there Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
And that was my original show. I very first started like a year ago. And when I joined the Hauntings team, I got asked to be an admin in there and so forth. So I accepted. And through talking with the leader of that group, he said, yeah, you can do a show here. It'd be great. And do whatever you want. So I started Willow's Bend from the beginning because there were so many people just lost for knowledge, information, and where to start, or having experiences and gifts that they didn't know what to do with, and they were frightened. So if I could lay a foundation of understanding to build on, you can't build a house on a sandy shore. It's not going to last. It's going to crumble,
Right.
and you got to make it solid and build it up.
Right.
So after the foundation, then I start getting into more specific topics like we touched on tonight. And so Willow's Bend, I let the audience choose the topic every week, because it's a smaller group of people watching and it's easier to control and manage that.
Right.
Whereas the Hauntings is a much bigger audience, and nobody would be able to decide. Be a disaster. So for them, I just follow what I originally presented in my Willow's Bend group each week. So for tomorrow, I go live in Willow's Bend, and I'm doing alien hybrids, for example. And next week in the Willow's Wisp, I'm doing, what's my topic next week? I want to say it's the Awakening.
Okay. Right.
And what that is and how that works for everybody, and how to know when you're going through your awakening and stuff.
Amazing. That would be a good.
That'll be
a good one to catch. The Awakening.
Yeah, I think that's a topic. Don't quote me. I have to look at my notebook, but yeah.
That's fine. I'd love to have you back on in the future as well. Maybe we can we'll shift gears a little and focus on aliens and talk about aliens and maybe the new Space Force that Trump has said he wants to create. Does that give any, we can talk about maybe, does that give any validity to guys like David Wilcox and the other Space Marines who said that they do 60 and back and are actually already doing tours to the moon Titan and fighting battles on Mars. So I would love to have you back. Maybe we can delve into that a little bit and, in the future.
That would be wonderful.
Awesome.
I would love that.
Well,
and you're right. I think you probably could go for 3 hours and still not
no.
find an end.
Yeah, no. And I love, hopefully you guys learned a lot tonight, friends, family, and the fans. And I will definitely be having Donna back as long as she accepts. And we'll delve into some more stuff because
I would love to.
Yeah, amazing. So with that said, guys, as always, thank you for your patronage. Thank you for the support. God bless, stay safe, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, everybody.